What it mean to be the best? Riding foes, feeling unimpressed. Make me reminisce, throwing bows, bend the corner, set my mind up on a goal. All I know is stay down, bad, I'm the GOAT. Okay, feel like the best, the great. Now ain't no debate. Yeah. Okay, feel like the best, the great. Now ain't no debate. Yeah. I ain't gotta say much. Know the boy got a touch. Another win for the rush. Another win for the rush. See me once and got a crush. See you twice and that's enough. Get the ring sized up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We are back with Tell the Truth. It is officially Combine Week as the NFL world has descended upon Indianapolis when the underwear Olympics has begun. And St. Elmo's is getting a workout in which rumors are going to be flying over the next week. And we'll be hearing some news about Kansas City Chiefs and the rest of the NFL world. DG, CJ, how you feeling, man?
Good, man. NFL Combine is upon us, and we get to start finally seeing where things kind of gonna go as far as free agency and as far as the draft as well too. So this is a good weekend for GMs and agents and to talk and discuss things. So we should hear some news here soon.
One step closer to the draft. It's the underwear Olympics. Like DMac said, you can take away some things from this weekend, but not too much. You'll probably get more information, honestly, like DG said, from the off-the-field stuff, like conversations between agents and GMs, and the conversation starting to move forward as far as tags and franchise tags, transition tags, and then obviously trades and rumors and stuff like that. So, but it's always fun because we all know the excitement we had a couple years ago when Xavier Worthy ran that 4.21. So it is a big week for certain players. So, but most guys can't really put too much stock into non-football activities, but it's good to see something to talk about in the NFL offseason for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way we get into this, obviously, like you said, some of it we're talking about, some of it not we're talking about. We'll be breaking down kind of position by position, prospects to watch, and then also what exactly to watch them do. So that you can take away, some small nuggets as far as we get into more information about these guys that the Chiefs are going to have an opportunity to draft ultimately coming up here in April. First and foremost, though, this is in the smack dab in the middle of the franchise tag window. We did have some news. Kyle Pitts got the franchise tag. George Pickens is expected to get his as well. In addition, we got news that Breece Hall, New York Jets running back, will either get a new deal or the Jets will put some type of tag, could be the transition tag, could be the franchise tag, non-exclusive or otherwise, on him as well to make sure that they control his market, which isn't necessarily all that big of a surprise as far as that is concerned, but it does shrink the market as far as running backs possibly they could be there in free agency for the Chiefs to target. And Javonte Williams also did return to Dallas, so that was no surprise as far as that's concerned. Simply, would suck if we don't get the opportunity to go get Breece Hall. Would have the opportunity if it's a transition tag to sign him to an offer sheet, but even then, I'd be surprised if that ends up happening. But the Jets will probably even match as far as that's concerned. Just to check, would you guys be willing to trade something to also pay Breece Hall?
Trade?
Like a pick? Depends what the pick is.
What's the line?
I want Breece Hall if it's like I don't want to give up anything in our first 3 picks.
Yeah, they can have a 6.
Anything like your late round, but like 940, and we got what is it 940 and 76?
940, 72, and 109.
72. Yeah, I can't give up anything after 72. I'm cool with, but I can't give up 40 or 72.
I wouldn't even do it for 109. It would have to be.
That'd be like my breaking point would be 109. Yeah,
it would have to be like a 5th next year or maybe one.
That's what I'm saying. Like
7, something like that. But they wouldn't do that. So, but yeah,
I'm more inclined to probably give up picks for next year, but not this
year. I'd be super comfortable with that for sure.
Yeah,
I want Breece, but I would rather overpay before I had to give up a value for picks this year, especially for a player that we need to.
A lot of transition tag and let's play ball.
Exactly. Let's talk numbers. But if they try to add picks, then you basically trying to say you don't want them to go anywhere. So, or you're trying to get a ransom for them. So, sucks. But and Jets are some losers.
And for what it's worth, the tough part of the transition tag is just that the Jets would then have 5 days to place or I should say match the offer sheet as a result of that, which would make it difficult as far as operating the rest of the off season, not knowing what you're getting as far as that aspect is concerned. So that's something to keep in mind in that standpoint. Other one was good friend Pete Sweeney of the KC Star. I want to go ahead and put this on the screen so you guys can see it. Friend of the show.
Shout out Pete.
Shout out Pete, man. Does a great rendition of Dreams and Nightmares. Pete Sweeney did end up tweeting this out late last week, I should say. Ended up saying ahead of combine week, I'm hearing there's legitimate interest from Travis Etienne to come to Kansas City. Etienne is due to train unrestricted free agent on March 11th. And Chiefs need to run it back. We will see. Now, look, the key part about this is obviously the franchise tag deadline ends up coming up here on March 3rd. So we will find out next week, ultimately, if they will have a chance to go after Travis Etienne. I think the key to this is very simple. The Jaguars tag him. Obviously, they have Devin Lloyd, who also is coming to market. Could be a possible tag candidate, though his franchise tag is a little bit weirder because of the linebacker technicality as well. If he ends up getting to market, I think Travis Etienne would make a lot of sense. How do you guys feel about Travis Etienne, I should say, as a viable running back option in free agency for the Chiefs?
Yes.
Makes all the sense in the world. No debate with me.
And I would say he's also one of probably the most realistic, because I don't think Kenneth Walker's leaving Seattle. And I obviously we know what's going on with Breece Hall. So you talk about the guys that could possibly be the answer as far as the 3-down running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, and provide you as an opportunity to go ahead and play this guy, like I said, all 3 downs and be a real home run hitter difference maker. That's Travis Etienne. And it seems like he's probably going to end up being the only one that maybe the Chiefs have a chance to go after and get on the market. And the one thing that I want to say, I understand why some people kind of talk about the warts with Travis Etienne, a little bit inconsistent as far as the down-to-down stuff, lacks some detail as far as imperfections and pass protection as well. But I think the key thing is you see what the talent is. You've seen it be proven on the field in the way that he can create those explosive plays, which the Chiefs badly need as far as a running back position. But the biggest piece is you wanted to go out and get EB back. You wanted to go out and hire DeMarco Murray back. They could take a guy like Travis Etienne, who is a very good running back who has his imperfections, add the detail-oriented aspect that those guys will instill in him, and all of a sudden you could possibly have a great back. And that is where that true value could actually come into having those guys into the building. So I think it's important to state that as well. I don't think that we have anybody the Jets would be interested in, and we don't really have the flexibility to be giving up talent at this current moment.
I don't know who they would want for real.
Yeah, I don't know about it either. I'm going to step away for 2 seconds, but DG and CJ, this has been a topic of conversation kind of recently as far as Jeremiah Love, who has been mocked endlessly to the Kansas City Chiefs at number 9. And we're going to separate the Ruben Bain Jr., Carnell Tate, whoever you like at 9 part of this aspect out of it for right now, just so we can have the conversation. Jeremiah Love, opportunity to take him at 9, running back position that we know the Chiefs need. Talk to me about how you feel as far as the team building standpoint, the viability of taking Jeremiah Love at number 9.
What's your I guess I'll do my priority list of players available at 9. DG and DMac have heard this. For me, DG, number 1 is David Bailey. Number 2 is Ruben Bain. Number 3 is Caleb Downs. Number 4 is Carnell Tate. Number 5 is Jeremiah Love. I'm not against taking Jeremiah Love at 9. He would just, like I said, he's number 5th as far as the guys I expect to go in the top 10 picks or to go in the top 9 because we're picking at 9. That's the hierarchy of how I'd rank them. So, like, I'm not against taking Jeremiah Love. I would just prefer to take him if all the other 4 guys are already gone. But I'm not mad if we took him and all those other 4 players above him because I agree David Bailey and Ruben Bain are day 1 edge starters, day 1 impact players to come in and get to the quarterback. I think Caleb Downs, I've told DG, I think he's the best player in the draft. I think he's going to be a 10-year All-Pro. And if he's healthy and lucky enough, I think he'll be on the All-Decade team. I think that highly of him. And I think Carnell Tate fixes your receiver issue, which you have right now. He can come in and be a day 1 starter, play the true X, and let Zay, Rashee, whoever, and Jalen Royals on the other side work all your intermediate and underneath routes. So I think either one of those solves a solution for you, which are two biggest ones right now. Outside of running back would be receiver and obviously an explosive edge to get to the quarterback. So that's how I rank them. David Bailey at 1, Ruben Bain 2, Caleb Downs 3, Carnell Tate 4, Jeremiah Love 5. That's how my rank is of how I would want to attack the 9th pick. So if after all that, I would want to trade out. That's how I think.
Yeah, I've been an advocate from Jump Street that the main priority for this team is to fix this defensive line first. Although I think Jeremiah Love is a great prospect, and I do believe that he is the best running back in this class at this point in time. I think that it would be a dynamic weapon for any offense that he steps into, with the playmaking ability, the home run ability that he has, the fact that he can be a 3-down back as well too. I think makes him a very intriguing prospect for anybody who's looking for a running back. I don't think that's the main priority for this team. I know that we want to get more explosive, and I know that Veach talked the other day about being more explosive at the running back position. Mm-hmm. I just think that with this class of free agency running backs, you can address that a lot better in this free agency class versus you addressing it with going to draft Jeremiah Love at 9. Now, we all know with the draft that things don't, always work in your favor, and the board kind of falls in a way where you have to make adjustments or whatever. Exactly. If Jeremiah Love is the best player available at 9, I don't mind Veach and them pulling that card. If he is absolutely the best player available, and that would mean that David Bailey is gone, that Ruben Bain is gone, that Caleb Downs is gone, Carnell Tate is probably gone as well too. At those points. So I think all those positions that CJ named are kind of more important to where the trajectory of this team needs to go moving forward. So especially now, like with the Rashee Rice news and things of that nature, I think receiver has definitely become a little bit more of importance in this draft than anything else. And you never want to stop surrounding Patrick Mahomes with pass catchers. For the foreseeable future. So
for sure.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the thing is this. I have been talking about Jeremiah Love for over a year. Like I said as much legitimately. I would have taken him, in the first round of last year's draft. That's how much I did love Jeremiah.
Definitely over Genty for sure.
Yeah.
I think he is a better prospect than Ashton Genty or Mar and Hampton. I think that he's objectively a top 10 prospect in this draft class. Point blank period, as far as his talent is concerned. The Chiefs just can't afford to do this. That's just what this comes down to.
Too many needs.
They have too big of a need for man-beating wide receiver talent, especially now into the future. We haven't mentioned it, but the Rashee Rice aspect of it, as far as that is concerned, they have too big a need along the entirety of the defensive line. And then you talk about some of the secondary needs. You have a massive hole right now at the safety position. Caleb Downs, cough, and you can't spend a top 10 pick on a running back. That's just not feasible for where you're at as far as the team building aspect is concerned. And there's so many arguments about, and that's, when you can take a running back high. I think that you have to be in a really solidified place on both sides of the ball in the trenches, and that's not where the Chiefs are. You have to have the infrastructure around them to make that running back be able to really impact games, which actually I think the Chiefs do because of their offensive line being good and, of course, the passing aspect of it. Now, again, it comes into the classic debate, of course, where I shouldn't say classic, but the debate, of course, as far as what was the bigger problem last year as far as scheme versus running back talent. And that's not to say it's either or. It was both. But to me, I think that scheme was a massive issue. And that's something we can talk about in a little bit as well, too. So they need wide receiver help. They need defensive line help. And if they can't get either of those, there's still prospects at, I think, even more valued position that they can be able to add as well, like a Caleb Downs. it's just tough for me to justify taking Jeremiah Love realistically in these scenarios. If by some miracle you have solved the wide receiver position and you have significantly invested in defensive line, even then that would mean that you probably didn't invest heavily enough in the secondary. I think it's just very difficult to see. Now, hey, you talk about a trade back and you end up getting to 15, whatever it is, and Jeremiah Love's still there, and you stacked, two more top 100 picks, then I suppose you could try and entertain it. But even then, that's obviously threading a very tough needle, and it's very unrealistic, in my opinion, for it to see teams that want to come up as far as this draft class is concerned as well. That's a piece of it to take into consideration too. Before we go ahead and get into this aspect, as far as some Chiefs rumors, I did want to mention Nate Taylor did talk about the possibility of Rashee Rice having a 10-plus game suspension in 2026. I think it's important just to state, for me personally, and I'll allow you guys to say if you disagree, but I think the Chiefs need to operate. And again, this is due to Rashee Rice being named in the civil lawsuit, for those that do not know. I think the Chiefs need to operate as if Rashee Rice is going to miss a chunk of the 2026 season and cannot be in their plans for the future. And I don't know how else they can approach this a different way. Now, look, he's been good on the field. Some aspects have been a little bit disappointing as far as the last year is concerned, all in the field, and I specify on the field. There have been plenty of things that have been disappointing off the field. We don't necessarily have to get into, but it's just the reality of what surrounds him right now. And so that's the way that the Chiefs should be operating. Again, that plays into the whole and need that they have at the wide receiver position in general as well. The other thing I want to talk about was just Nate Taylor also hitting on the fact that he thinks it's about 60-40 as far as Trent McDuffie getting traded or not getting traded. Nothing really necessarily to talk about here. I did want to give one quick just round for everybody just to say this. My line of trading Trent McDuffie is either, and I think these are realistic scenarios that you couldn't happen. Either the Cowboys give you the pick 20 straight up, or the Rams give you pick 29 and then, kind of a fourth. And if you can get another day 2 pick, that'd be great. But kind of a 4th round pick in addition to that, 4th or 5th round pick, then I think that you could justify it. What's you guys' line as far as a possible Trent McDuffie trade?
Yeah, I'm in that range. I think if it's a 1st round pick, it's probably more of a middle 1st round pick. I think the home run would be getting 13 from the Rams, but I don't think that's going to happen. That's probably an unrealistic expectation to have. So you probably have to settle with having 29 and a back, a more background day 3 pick. I think the better option would probably be going to the Cowboys and trying to get 20, just because I think that you could kind of double up on who you want to get in that first round, or even use it kind of as leverage if you wanted to kind of move up in a sense and get who you really want. But the way, I don't know, man, the way Vitch talked the other day, it really seems like they're adamant about trying to get a deal done with Trent McDuffie at this point in time and keeping him here. But also, you know how the business works. You can say one thing today and then mean a whole another thing tomorrow. So it would not shock me if whatever happens with Trent McDuffie ends up coming out this weekend or something at that point.
No, same things. If I'm going to trade Trent, I need a 1st rounder at minimum for sure. Anything less than that, like a 2nd or a package of picks, I'd rather at that point just extend them and find a way to get a deal done. So, yeah, I think a 1st round is definitely the breaking point of where we decide to move Trent or not. I think more than likely, like DG said, I think we're leaning or trending towards him getting a deal done. I think it's always coming down to as far as personal guarantees and how much money you get in that regard. But I don't think giving Trent $25 to $30 million is the issue. I think it's kind of been the thing we've talked about all offseason. how is he used within the defense and in his spag scheme specifically, as far as playing in the slot and outside and doing both of those in roles and kind of having him as that tweener, like the way he was used in 2023, specifically when he had his all-pro year. He was used everywhere on the field. And when you can use a Trent McDuffie like that, I think that's when you get the most out of him. And he's at his best for this roster specifically. So, yeah, if we're not talking first rounders for McDuffie, I would just find a way to get a deal done at that point for sure.
Yeah. And again, and this is the thing. If you're able to sign him to, as Nate Taylor said, the deal would start at that $30 million new money range as far as Derek Stingley's deal was concerned, then sign him. I'd say, again, play him in the nickel because you have two legitimate outside corners already on the roster. Obviously, you would assume that Jalen Watson's going to go on, but you've been able to show that you can bring in outside cornerback help specifically in the draft and do that on a continual basis, I should say. You have to play him in the slot to get the maximum value out of Trent McDuffie. And obviously he can't play 100% in the slot. That's not the way that works. But primarily he does have to play there to get that value out of him. And that's all I ask as far as that's concerned if you're going to keep and extend Trent McDuffie. We'll talk about keeping Trent McDuffie, not necessarily extending him a little bit later on as well. I don't think there was anything else that we needed to hit. I do have one question for you guys. Is there anything so far that we need to hit coming out of Combine Week in news specifically?
We pretty much hit everything else. Talked about getting more explosive. We all know the Rashee situation. They talked about obviously playing behind guys like Kingsley and Trey and Creed and expanding on what they do very well as far as the run game. And we all know what we have to do at edge. And it was nice to see like how many players said today they met with the Chiefs. I mean, they're doing their due diligence. So that was good to see from today.
Yeah, and then of course, Scout and Combine, that is a massive piece. That the health and then the actual meetings, those are the two biggest things that teams get out of the Scout and Combine. I know we're going to talk about the on-field drill aspect too, and the testing as far as that and the measurements. But being able to sit down with these guys and talk to them, they feel like they learn a lot as far as that process is concerned. They have questions answered that they want to be able to get more background on, and then the health and medicals are massive as well. I want to hit a little bit as far as the talk that we've seen from Andy Reid, from Brett Veach specifically coming out of this. We have seen some conversations as far as the Chiefs' offensive mentality. To me, the lip service as far as getting more explosive doesn't really mean anything. It's just obvious. Like, obviously, you were really bad at explosives. It matters how you want to try and get them. I think the one that Veach actually specified as far as running behind the interior three of the offensive line, that is very good. And I would say up there with any interior three in the National Football League is a big piece. They need to be running behind those guys more often, especially downhill, under center type things. Now, will Andy Reid do that is ultimately the question. So Brett Veach mentioning that specifically was probably the most encouraging thing I've heard all offseason, and even that it unfortunately didn't come from the right source. Speaking of which, there was a conversation that was had with Jesse Newell, who is the Chiefs writer for The Athletic, and Robert Mays.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the school, Jesse.
Shout out, Jesse.
And Robert Mays, who was on the Athletic Football Show, discussing the Chiefs as one of the most interesting teams of the offseason. And I would encourage everybody to go and listen to that in general. But there got to one specific point in which they had talked about, going around Indy and hearing from people within the Chiefs building about some things about where they want to take the offensive direction, how they see the offense improving. And it was specifically kind of built around the idea that the scheme changing wasn't necessarily the way that they were going to choose to do so, that Andy Reid is going to continue to run his offense. And they expect that the improvement will come by acquiring different players, which is, legitimate. There definitely will be an aspect of player acquisition that will improve things. I would just say this is another thing that has not necessarily been all that encouraging as far as the offseason is concerned, because I do think that there are flaws as far as the Chiefs scheme. I guess I know I took your temperature as far as the Chiefs overall is concerned. How do you guys feel about the Chiefs offense before we get to free agency in the draft?
Yeah, I probably in agreement with you. I err more on the side of there's a lot of question marks for me, especially schematically wise. Um, Hearing what I heard today doesn't give me a lot of hope and confidence, but hopefully with new players, the scheme is a little. I mean, it's not going to be different, but hopefully the scheme is better. But hearing what I heard today it doesn't bode well for what I thought I was going to see going into next year. Obviously, and it doesn't really hit on the point of accountability that I wanted to. That we've all been talking about, holding people accountable and blah blah blah, and it sounds like somebody at the top is, pretty stubborn still. So we'll see how it works out.
CJ,
I've always said from the beginning, to make real change, first and foremost, it starts with the talent. At the end of the day, scheme is important. I believe formationally and schematically, the way you attack defenses is just as important, but sometimes it's dudes over plays. You got to have dudes out there to make plays, and we all agree we need to be more explosive as far as man beaters in our receiver room and having running backs who can actually make the correct reads and get longer than a 10-yard rush, which we were at the bottom of the league with the EPA, especially for RPOs, which we essentially didn't run them. We were PPOs. We didn't run the ball at all every time we ran that action. So I do agree we do need to change schematically, but all of it starts up front with having better athletes. And maybe it's kind of like a crazy talk, maybe having better athletes, trust them to run some of the plays that they do need to run and force them into changing their hands. So I do agree we need to change schematically, but first and foremost, regardless of that, we have to have better players. So the way we attack this offseason and this free agency in the next couple of weeks will tell me a lot how they feel. I'm in agreement. I would love to spend some of that money and get running back knocked out. That would be an amazing way to A, start off our free agency, and B, start off our overall offseason. And then we can go into the draft with a clear mind, a clear head of we have running back figured out. Now we're just complimenting guys as far as do we decide to bring Kareem back or Damian Pierce or grab a guy in the draft. But it's not as like a top priority and need when you figure that out going into the draft. So now from a schematic standpoint, you have the dudes in front of you. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to actually commit to the run game, whether you're running the ball from under center, which is what all three of us want in most of Chiefs Kingdom? But I've said if you're going to live in the gun, fellas, at least have the athletes to do it. I don't like living in the gun. I don't want to live in that world. I want to get under center more than anyone on this panel. But if you're going to do it, if you are going to live in the gun, Andy, at least have the athletes to do it. If you're going to be crazy, at least make it make sense. So we'll see what happens. But I did tell the chat today, this will probably be the most anticipated training camp in St. Joe probably since 2018 when Pat took over for the first time, because there's a lot of changes we all want to see, and we all want to see do they actually make the change. So I'm excited to see what happens.
I think the key thing here is just, and again, when you talk about the scheme, that does not mean that you're ignoring the personnel aspect. That we know the running back. The thing about it is, I was telling people in training camp that the running back room was bottom 3 in the National Football League. And I was called that I was crazy for saying that, too pessimistic. And all of a sudden now everybody's like, we got to take a running back top 10. You're going to upgrade the personnel by some measure, and they need to do that, obviously. But you also need to update the scheme, because last year was not a 1-year blip that just all of a sudden happened where things collapsed. This has been 4 years of the offensive scheme continuing to go downhill because defenses have adjusted to the spread them out, quick passing game, RPO, where you don't necessarily challenge them being able to block with inline tight ends, that you don't challenge them with heavy personnel sets because your tight ends are weak blocking. You don't get downhill as far as the under center run game is concerned. You don't use the offensive line talent that you have to actually move people in that run game. And you don't use the threat of the run to be able to manipulate the second level of the defense and make your passing game look like your run game so that you can be able to create those explosives. The fact that they aren't willing to do those things is the problem ultimately. And adding an explosive back is going to create more explosive plays, yes, but it's not necessarily going to solve the issues that were fundamentally wrong with the Chiefs scheme last year. And that's it. That's the thing. I don't know why we have to settle for only doing one of those things. I hope that Andy Reid sees otherwise. It just doesn't necessarily sound like he does personally, but that is what it is. So that's the thoughts as far as the Chiefs kind of scheme is concerned. With that being said, we will now get to our scouting combine preview, kind of hitting on each of our positions that will be, basically tracking throughout the entirety as far as prospects are concerned, but specifically breaking down what one prospect specifically that we want to have, a big name guy that you're going to be looking for, how they test, how they perform. One, sleeper, underrated guy that hasn't been talked about a lot. And then what exactly you're looking for at those positions specifically, testing wise, performance wise, drill wise. That'll tell you a little bit about certain prospects. So, CJ, you're going to end up leading us off. It's a big name tight end, underrated tight end, and what you're going to be looking for these guys to do at the combine.
Obviously, the big names are definitely the one I'm most intrigued to see is Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. I've been pretty high on him as far as comparison. My comp this whole time has been Vernon Davis. I think he's a freak athlete. If I had to guess, he's probably going to run like a low 4.4, high 5, a low 4.5, high 4.4. I think that's his range. He's a good blocker for his size, willing blocker, and I think he's going to kill as far as the gauntlet drill. I think he's going to do really well in that. A mid-tier tight end. The guy I'm most intrigued, we talked about it the other day on DG Space, Michael Trigg out of Baylor. I think he's going to kill the gauntlet drill. He has very good hands. Not the best blocker, but as far as like a pure receiving tight end, I think he's going to intrigue a lot of teams. And as far as like a third tier guy, let me see. Someone that's not that getting that much. Probably DMac's guy, RJ Maryland at SMU. Obviously, he's more of a blocker, but somebody that we need to obviously add to our offense, given the points we just made. We need to get more physical guys because you need to have a balance in your offense of having receiving tight ends and blocking tight ends. You don't have to be the best receiver to be a blocking tight end, but having that guy, like DMac stated, who can be a 6 offensive lineman is huge for 12 personnel, 13 personnel, and you can use them in the play action game and scheme-wise to get open, but you need to have a true blocker who can become essentially a 6th offensive lineman at times. So those would be probably the 3 guys, and amongst others I'm interested in looking at. So Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon, Michael Trigg out of Baylor, and RJ Maryland out of SMU. Those will be my 3 guys for tight end. And am I doing the other 2 positions too, or just those?
We'll do one at a time.
Okay.
And then, and what do you want to see from these guys? Obviously, I know everybody's expecting Sadiq to test extremely well. I think that's going to be a big key as far as where his draft stock goes. He's been sliding down boards because of some of the playoff performances. But tell me what you want to see these tight ends do.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Sadiq, just want to see him be smooth out of his route running. I know, obviously, a lot of the complaints, like you said, the playoff performances was due to target consumption, and obviously he didn't get as many targets as we should have, especially because Oregon didn't play that well in a lot of their games, especially the Indiana one. So definitely want to see him run smooth routes, no double catches, run everything smoothly. And I know they're running, catching balls from quarterbacks for the first time, but just be smooth in his operation. I know he's going to run crazy fast. He's probably going to bench 20-plus times. He's a crazy athlete. I'm not worried about that. I'm more so just worried about him being smooth and no hitches out of his route running, especially since he hadn't really ran any live routes in a while since the season ended. For Trigg, my biggest thing with him, just want to see him have good feet when he's blocking, keep his head down, good arch bend, and you just want to see him be physical as a blocker because we all know he can run routes. We all know he can get open and catch the ball. But his biggest question is, can you put your hand in the dirt and put your face in there and block? So I want to see, has he really worked on the sled, really worked on his bend, and really worked on his ankle flexibility as far as getting in there and blocking at the correct angles and blocking with aggression and not being passive. So if you treat this like a real game in blocking situation, you're going to treat the game the same way. So that'll be my big one for him. And then RJ Maryland, you want to see him just run a decent time. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I don't want to see him run like a 5 flat. I would prefer for him to run somewhere in like the 4.7s to 4.8s. I know he's not going to run anything crazy. He's not an athlete. He's a blocking tight end. But if he can just show he can actually have some type of burst, it actually it'll make a team actually make sense when you talk about picking them on the day 2 or day 3 situation. So those will probably be the 3 things I'm looking at the most. Kenyon Sadiq's route running and hands. Michael Trigg's blocking as far as the sled drill. And then RJ Maryland running a good 40. Those will probably be the 3 things I'm looking at the most.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned specifically the 40 time. 40 time at a lot of these positions, really all of them.
A couple of you.
is extremely overrated. However, tight end is one of the very few ones where if you can get a tight end that runs a good 40 time and can block, it is a weird combination as far as success in the national football ends up coming into fruition. So good athletes that can block, usually a recipe for success for sleepers at the tight end position. we did not hit on anything as far as the Jawan Taylor and Jalen Moore conversation.
I was saving that. I think DG was going to talk about that one.
Yeah, actually, it's a good point. We'll hit on that when DG talks about his offseason scenario. Thank you for that. Appreciate the question though, TJ. So we're going to go on. I will go ahead and get into my first one. First position is specifically safety. As far as that is concerned, I'm very interested to see a lot of the top guys in general. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be interested in Caleb Downs' testing. To me, it really does not matter. I don't care. To be perfectly honest with you, I really do not care. And it's not to say that he's going to be like a bad athlete. He's going to test as a good athlete. People just would be like, oh, he's not elite. It is what it is. I don't really care. You see him on tape, see what he does. Dylan Thieneman and out of Oregon, safety, played a lot of slot nickel. Where he tests is going to be very interesting. He's going to come in around 205. If the power aspect is going to be a question mark as far as that is concerned. He's a guy early second round that could be interesting depending on where things fall for the Chiefs. In a theoretical Trent McDuffie trade, trading him, then being able to get an extra, at the very least, first round pick, then you have more flexibility to go with the safety in that second round range. And then as a result, he can play the slot, and that makes a little bit more sense. So I want to see how he tests specifically as the big name guy. Guy down the board is somebody that DG is familiar with, which is Michael Taft. I've been watching the Texas tape. I really like his coverage skills, and I want to see if he can really be a guy that feels comfortable moving. And certainly as far as where he tests, and really it's more about hitting benchmarks. It just can't. He's not a bad athlete. It's really the point as far as he's concerned, because he plays with a lot of instincts. He understands how to cover. So I like Michael a lot. And so I want to see where exactly he nets out. And then as far as what I'm looking for, the drills specifically that you'll know, they'll line them up, have you backpedal, swivel your hips, be able to make that transition. We brought up the Jaden Hicks clip specifically, where we talked about a combine drill and that great PBU that he made versus the Raiders in this season, this year. The ability to transition your hips as a safety is a massive piece of the job. Certainly if you're going to be a free safety, but definitely even in split safety looks. So that's one drill that I always pay attention to as far as the fluidity is concerned with which the safety looks like. And then outside of that, you like to see really the explosiveness. 10-yard split is really the big one. And then a little bit of the agility doesn't hurt as far as the testing is concerned for these safeties too. And of course, where they weigh and then subsequently how they test could tell you a little bit about what type of safety they also want to be too. DG, cornerback position. Who are you looking for and what are you looking to see?
Corners. What's funny about this class is that I don't really think there's like a top guy that's like, damn, that's gonna just jump off. I mean, Mansour and Delane, but I haven't really looked at him all that much as far as cornerbacks, just because he's probably gonna go top 20, top 10, you would probably say. So I think, in my opinion, as far as the Chiefs would be a top guy, looking at a guy like maybe Keith Abney or my guy who I've been targeting, Takario Davis as well too. I think there's a lot of underrated guys in this class that most fans should probably be watching. Another top guy I think would be Colton Hood from Tennessee. Probably another guy that's probably a borderline back end first rounder, early second round guy, day 2 guy. So looking forward to see him. And then my sleeper guy corner. You know what? I'm gonna go with my guy from Texas, Malik Muhammad, man. Hasn't been talked about a lot, but I think plays with really good instincts, kind of like a what you would say a great value version of Jahdae Barron when he played for us at Texas. So kind of got some of the same kind of skills. I'm kind of excited to see how he tests and what he does at this combine as well too. And then the drill for everybody for corners is obviously seeing the fluidity in the hips backpedaling, things of that nature. Can you get in and out of breaks, things, and then also the 40 time as well too really matters. So seeing some of these guys run, which I think you'll probably see some pretty lightning fast times or whatever, but that's obviously something that to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, here's the reality is, when you talk about Brett Veach and Dave Merritt and their type of cornerbacks, you want to look for that arm length. That is going to be a key piece of it. And honestly, the long speed is going to be a question mark. They don't necessarily have to have that as far as that's concerned, but certain play style. But definitely want to see the fluidity as far as the ability to transition in and out is going to be a big piece of it as well. CJ, circle back around, linebacker position. Big name, a little bit sleeper underrated. And then what exactly are you going to be looking for?
Yeah, my big name, I'm going to go with DG's guy, Anthony Hill out of Texas. Some LB1 in a lot of people's mind, depending if you ask them. Crazy athlete. He talked highly of himself today and what he expects of himself in the draft and tell teams they're going to get a dog. So definitely excited to see him talk to the media today. But I love his arm length. Another thing when you're talking about linebackers as far as, disengaging from linemen, being able to run and hit, and a guy that can do it all, a guy that can run, tackle, and he can cover as well. So getting more speed and athleticism in the linebacker room, which we've all talked about, as far as finding that next Drew Tranquil replacement or next third linebacker for this group. He's definitely the guy that's probably I'm most excited to see. He tests. A mid-tier guy for me would definitely be Jacob Rodriguez. Came on a lot of people's boards late this past year. Obviously didn't really have too much film on him because he obviously didn't have a chance to start and really get a big linebacker role previously. And this year had a Heisman-type season, led the country in tackles, and did everything you can ask for from a football player in period. He even got him some offensive touchdowns. So the biggest thing for him, obviously, he's going to probably do really well on the board because I think he's one of the smartest players I've seen as far as the Big 12 this year, but definitely in the country. The biggest thing for him probably going to want to see is the bag drill, just see the footwork and just see consistency and not see any missteps as far as getting over bags and getting out of blocks. And probably the guy I'm most excited to see, and probably everybody else's, is Harold Perkins. Probably the biggest project you can see out of all this biggest linebacker group because beginning of his career, he played on the ball. Back end of his career, he played more off-ball linebacker. So him being that tweener, his comp for me was kind of like Isaiah Simmons coming out of Clemson some years ago. A guy that's just a freak athlete. You put him anywhere in the football field, he's going to make a play. I would love him to grab him here on day 3 and have him beat out LB3 for us. I think that pick would make a lot of sense for us, giving us the speed and athleticism and just giving that joker guy that Spags can use all over the field. So the biggest thing for him, I'm probably going to want to see just a 40 time, just to see what time he runs. I know he's going to test crazy well. If he runs a really good 40, that's going to help his stock a lot and move him up because we all know he can tackle. It's just going to be what DC gets him and how they're going to use him in the scheme. But those are probably the 3 guys from linebacker I'm most excited. Anthony Hill out of Texas, Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech, and Harold Perkins out of LSU.
Yeah, look, Perkins is very fascinating for how he's going to end up being deployed, but, obviously showing to be a really good athlete is going to help. Rodriguez, again, is kind of similar to Michael Taft. It's just, hey, can you hit these benchmarks as far as being able to be a competent NFL athlete? Because you show on the tape and you see the instincts, you see the ability to flow to the ball, you see the ability to get off of blocks. It's really good as far as Jacob Rodriguez is concerned and what he can bring to the table at the second level of a defense. As far as defensive line is concerned, look, for me, it's Caleb Banks. He showed out in the Senior Bowl. It looked incredibly explosive. Obviously, there are going to be question marks about the consistency as far as the
had a great quote today, too, during the
effort is concerned. I did not see the quote. What was the quote?
He said, I'm going to run through a mother face.
No, face, yes.
Love to hear
the quote of the combine.
Today.
It did just what type of athlete is he? And it shows up on tape. The length that he plays with is very impressive. I want to see what size he comes in at. The weight is going to be something to watch. You obviously don't want a guy to come in at like 335, 340, something like that. One more in that 320 range ish, really, as far as that's concerned, at least for me, for how big he is. I just don't want him to be 330 plus because I'm a little bit concerned as far as that weight aspect is concerned. But I think he's in line to be a really good athlete. I think he's in line to go in the 20s of the draft. And I think that he can really develop into something special too, as far as his upside is concerned. So just want to see him definitely test as far as that aspect. I'll mention 2 other guys. Well, honestly, I probably more than that as far as this is concerned. But I would have a few other guys. Grayson Holton is somebody just to keep an eye on. You'll probably end up hearing about him because he will go through the process, specifically at the combine, and they'll be like, oh, this guy's kind of moving a little bit differently than the rest of them. and it's just because he's one of the few 3 techs as well. The other one I wanted to give a shout out was also something that Pete Sweeney brought to the table. The Chiefs have shown a lot of interest in Rashee Benny, who's going to end up, who also was at the Senior Bowl as well. And we'll see ultimately what ends up happening with him. But Michigan defensive tackle, certainly somebody to keep an eye on. Chiefs need defensive line help in general, and there are a lot of them in this draft. And then the last one, I'll just say Xavier Harris out of Ole Miss. I know he's banged up. I don't know if he's necessarily going to test. It's just going to be a question mark. I do want to see ultimately if we hear anything about him kind of coming out of the combine in general, just to see, does anything get talked about? Anything, rumor wise come out? I think it'll be fascinating to see in that aspect as well. But he may not even be there, to be perfectly honest with you. I think is he? Let me double check. Because he is. He's going to be. He is slated to be there. So hopefully we get a little bit of testing out of him, and then also Chris McKellen, just because of Missouri. Always want to key on too. But defensive line, the 10-yard split for that explosiveness is always something to watch out for. The thing about this is, I know a lot of people have been talking about kind of the arm length as far as edge rushers are concerned for understandable reasons, but the length on the inside really does matter a lot, because you can be able to get your hands on into your offensive lineman quickly. You can put them in a bad position. So the arm length for these defensive linemen is something that I'm certainly going to be keying in on first and foremost, as far as the measurements are concerned. And then how some of these guys move, you take it for what it is. Certainly some of the more impressive athletes that you're going to see at the nose tackle position, Dominic Orange, Lee Hunter, to name a few, are going to be very interesting as well. And I'll give a shout out to Skylar Gill Hunter out of not Hunter, Skylar Gill. What is his name? Just jumped out of Howard. There it is. Skylar Gill Howard out of Texas Tech is going to be interesting to see too. So that's what I got for defensive line. DG, you want to go ahead and walk us through your edge group?
Yeah, man. This is, I think, what a lot of Chiefs fans, the position a lot of Chiefs fans should probably be watching the most. Obviously, the top guys, well, two top guys, David Bailey and Ruben Bain. Watching them as the 2 top prospects. My guy obviously would be watching David Bailey. Can't wait to see what he obviously can do. A guy that I think is a tremendous need for the Chiefs defensive line for the future, foreseeable future. A guy who can be, give you a lot of speed off the edge, a lot of explosion off the edge, and it really changed the dynamic of this defensive line. So can't wait to see how he tests and see what he does. And then you got, obviously guys that I think are a couple sleeper guys. A guy I've been looking at is Gabe Jacobs as well too. I think a guy who kind of fits more of the mold of what Spags kind of looks for in his size wise and in defensive ends, but also kind of gives you some of that burst you kind of need to kind of change the dynamic of this defensive line as well too. So can't wait to see what they do. Drill wise, I think it's one where they kind of do the lateral kind of drill, seeing them move laterally.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's through the bags or something. Yeah,
like footwork over the bag.
Yeah.
Yep.
So seeing if they have kind of calm feet and things of that nature, can they get through those drills without stumbling and things of that nature. Not really worried about 40 times in this this position. I mean, it's great if a guy runs a great 40 time or whatever, but I don't need you to be blazingly fast or anything. Just as long as you're fast off the ball, that's the only thing I care about from the edges. And then I'll shout out hometown kid Cassius Howe as well too. Can't wait to see him. Proud of him, man, from being from Kansas City, attending Rockhurst. I know this is a really big moment for him. So it's always great. It's always great to see guys from your hometown really get a chance and an opportunity to make their dreams come true. So hopefully he goes out there and balls. And who knows, maybe he might be the next Chief.
Got a couple KC boys out there. Shout out Big Citrus.
Yeah, Big Citrus as well too, man.
I wonder Also, then I'll insert this here because we just talked about defensive line group. Guys like Ruben May Jr. and I'll also mention Keldrick Falk specifically. The weight that they come in at, because this is the weight that they ultimately want to test at so that NFL teams can evaluate them. 280, 285, 290. Obviously, you're talking about 3-tech. 275, 270. Then you're talking about, okay, true edge. Both of those guys, Bain specifically, should be a really good athlete. Keldrick Falk should be an excellent athlete. Where those guys come in at weight-wise tells you a little bit of where they want teams to view them, and I think that part is also something worth keying in on as far as that is concerned too. CJ, go ahead and hit me with the offensive lineman that you want to key in on, and anything that you want to look at as far as the combine is concerned.
I'll probably focus more on tackles because I think they're pretty set at guard, especially with the way Kingsley played. So obviously everybody's favorite, probably the guy that's the most interesting is Caden Proctor out of Alabama. I know obviously he was definitely a lot of hype coming out of high school, and then we all know the situation between him transferring between Iowa and Bama, then settling there. And he's a guy that obviously is very athletic, can move around. He even did some Trent Williams type things in their offense. They gave him the ball on the goal line. So he's a very athletic kid. Definitely want to see how his 10 splits and how he runs, because obviously we all know he's versatile, can play both sides. But if he can truly show that 10-yard split and he can really move as fast as we think he can could definitely move himself up the draft forward. That's probably the highest guy. He could probably go day one. Another guy for me I like looking at is Jennings Dunker. Ironically, he went to Iowa as well. You can never go wrong with an Iowa prospect. Probably, in my opinion, maybe the best blocking tight end tackle in this class. Especially when you're talking him next to guys like Mwaga and Fanu, but this guy's a dog. Can play both sides. Mauler in the run game. I think he's a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker, in my opinion. But I don't think you could never go wrong with like I said, an Iowa tackle. They do everything right. Plays with good pad level, has violent hands. He's probably one of my favorite linemen in this class in general. I'm mad how good he is. I would love to get him as a swing tackle, but he's probably going to be drafted earlier, especially if he tests well. And my sleeper, not one that people are too much talking about. I'm going to butcher his name, but I think I've been saying it right based off the way I've heard it. Falele Fayome out of Wake Forest, another tackle. Obviously another Polynesian guy. Ironically, let's kind of go with the theme today. Had equal snaps between left side and right side. He could play both. Definitely he's been Big 12, not Big 12, but ACC All-American the way he's played. So a guy that's had high aspects. His biggest question for me would be his weight. I know it kind of fluctuated. He played this year between like 300 to 315. So we'll love to see him be, a little heavier as far as, but he has good frame, good build. I think he's 6'6". So a guy that has experience playing both sides. And when we were looking at swing tackles, you love guys who have experience in that area. And the biggest thing for him is just I want to see the way he tests as far as I watched a lot of his film. He's probably the film I've watched the most. Gets a little high on his block, so I definitely want to see him have a good arch, a good bend as far as when you're getting on the sled. Kind of similar to what I said to Michael Trey, and just having that good burst, having good footwork, and not really getting too high on his block. So, but I love his athleticism. He moves like a tight end, so he's a guy that you can come in and be your sixth offensive lineman in case for a break the case window scenarios. So kind of like we did when we talked about Esapole last year. This is a guy I'm really high on. I think whoever gets him and develops him, gives him time to really build his frame and gain weight, I think he could be a steal in the draft. So he's probably my favorite day three tackle for sure.
All right, fair enough. I guess arm length would be that's
the kind of
talking point.
Tall though.
Yeah. So as far as wide receiver is concerned, it's a little bit difficult only because there's a lot of flavor for wide receiver. There are different ways that you can go with it. Obviously, the Chiefs have, for a long time in the past, I should say, specifically wanted a certain type of wide receiver. I think that they need to start looking at the diversification of their wide receiver rooms, particularly toughness, not blocking, some of these things that obviously you're not necessarily going to see at the combine. But hey, the wide receiver that I want to see, Omar Cooper Jr. obviously has gotten a lot of talk specifically for what he can do. I think he rightfully so. He's very impressive as far as that aspect is concerned. I don't think that you're ultimately going to see the top guys in Tyson or Tate run. It'd be great if they do. I very much enjoy it, specifically for the 10-yard split. And a 10-yard split is a thing that matters a lot to the Chiefs. You look at the wide receivers, and that tweet was floating around. As far as the wide receivers that they draft, they all have very good 10-yard splits. Specifically, though, it does matter in the NFL for the ability to have that acceleration, because that speaks a little bit to where you win, which is stem of the route, on top of the route, and then at that break point. And those are the big things that be able to separate you. Full 40 is great, but that's not necessarily the biggest thing. And Carnell Tate specifically in his 10-yard split is going to be fascinating because that short area quickness is one part of your game you could kind of poke a hole in. But still, I love Carnell Tate that much. Other guys to keep an eye out on, Ted Hurst out of Georgia State, 6'3", big guy. If he shows any level of that short area quickness, that's going to be great to see as far as further down the board. Eric McAllister has got talked about a lot as far as the analytics darling in this draft class. For understandable reasons, that's great yards per route run numbers, and that's why you get a lot of hype as far as that's concerned. Then Malachi Fields coming off of what was an impressive Senior Bowl for him. A lot of conversation as far as where he can end up trying to go as far as his testing is concerned too. So worth watching those guys. And then as far as the drill, I just love watching the gauntlet drill where they run straight down a line and turn back and forth, catch the ball, drop it. And it just shows how comfortable they are just transitioning. Hey, you're coming out of a break on a dig and the quarterback is putting it on you. Are you willing, or I wouldn't say willing, but do you feel comfortable turning back quickly, grabbing the ball and transitioning into tucking it? And so that's why I really love that drill. It shows you a little bit about how they feel comfortable catching it and that aspect, specifically coming out of break. So that's one to watch as far as the wide receiver position is concerned. CJ, DG, my bad. I'm going to go ahead and end it off as far as the running back position is concerned.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, everybody's probably gonna have their eyes glued to the screen once Jeremiah Love does anything at this combine. But other guys that I'll be definitely watching and looking at, me and CJ's favorite prospect, Emmett Johnson, is definitely a guy that definitely will have my eye on. Explosion a fair good amount of production and tape. Exceptional vision from this kid as well too, man. I think he's arguably the best running back prospect behind Jeremiah Love in this class, in my opinion. And I think that he's a realistic possibility for the Chiefs, for somebody for them to get in this class as well too. A sleeper guy that I think that people could keep their eyes on as well as a guy like Damon Claiborne, who the Chiefs have talked to. I think at either at the Shrine or Senior Bowl, one of those bowls that he went to. I can't remember for sure which one or whatever, but they spoke to him as well too. Another guy that brings explosion as well. Maybe a little bit more of a raw prospect, more development there in that sense, but a guy I think that they definitely are kind of interested in, especially if they went ahead and sat down and had a conversation with him. But this running back class is I won't say is extremely deep, but at the same time, I think that there are some hidden gems in this running back class that we should definitely be watching and get to see. Obviously, the drill that everybody wants to see when it comes to running backs is the 40 time. I don't think anybody cares about anything else outside of that. Maybe do they run the gauntlet? I think they do the gauntlet as well too.
I don't
think so.
I don't think that they do the gauntlet, but they do obviously have receiving drills, which is nice to be able to see how these guys are catching the ball too.
Yeah, so watching some of the receiving drills, can't kind of wait to see what Jeremiah Love shows on some of those. I think he's a phenomenal receiver as well out of the backfield. So I expect to see some really soft hands and being able to adjust and make some catches that normal running backs would probably normally be able to make. So excited to see this running back class though, for sure.
Good class, good class.
Hey, look, I mean, I want to see Mike Washington Jr. He's going to be one of the bigger guys that ends up measuring out there as far as the weight is concerned. He's going to be up there around 230, but he is a good athlete. If I want to see, could he be a very good athlete as far as the testing is concerned? I think it'd be very intriguing as far as that aspect. So that's it as far as the scouting combine is concerned. We'll come back, kind of talk about who impressed, what we saw from them, what specifically kind of says about some of these prospects. And again, we'll be doing our specific prospect breakdown series as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft in about a month as things go on. But we do have our last installment of the Choose Your Own Offseason aspect is concerned. Mr. GG, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, man. Going into this off season, this was a little bit of a challenge because I am not good at reading instructions. So until DMac has to explain to me what my mission was here, but heading into this off season, my mission was basically to figure out how to make the adjustments necessary to this roster with also not necessarily paying Trent McDuffie and just keeping him on his 5th-year option at this point. So I think it's roughly about $13 million. So you can pull up the graphic whenever you're ready,
sure.
or whatever. Yeah, man, I don't think it's really that hard. Especially with the releases. Obviously, Mike Dana already we've seen that writing has kind of been on the wall as well too. Up until now, I thought it was going to be Jawan Taylor was probably going to be the next cut and release casualty, but it seems like Veach and them may be moving in a different direction as far as where they want to go with that. But this is how I would foresee it: Jawan Taylor, Mike Dana, Drew Tranquil, Wayne Morris, and I know a lot of people are probably going to hate me for having Noah Gray on there as well too, and Shamari Connor. Man, look, I like Noah. I think he's a great guy. I think he's been a great glue guy for this organization. But when I look at the money aspect of it and what the Chiefs could to obviously do as far as having the amount of cap that they could have, it's business, man. It's just a business. And I think that you can obviously go and make an upgrade at that position with how some of these, free agents look, and in the draft as well too at this point. So that was my only reason for trading. I mean, not trading, but cutting Noah Gray. My initial thought was to trade Noah Gray, but I was told I couldn't do that. So yeah. But ultimately, letting him go, I think saves you about $5 million on the cap. So I just think, love Noah, man, but to have a backup guy making that much at this point, and you can, find somebody a lot cheaper to do with typically what he does, I think is kind of beneficial. As well too. Obviously, we know about the Jawan Taylor situation, $20 million in cap space. I think that's just so hard to pass up at this point. But obviously, there's other ways you can get that cap number down or whatever. If you want to extend and restructure or something like that, they obviously can do that. I think Mike Dana, the writing was already kind of on the wall. Just way too much money. Bad contract by Brett Veach and company. It sucks to see him go, but at the same time, it's just business at this point. Drew Tranquil, I think, has served his purpose here. Love Drew, man, but yeah, it's time to get a lot younger at that position, and I think it's just time to move on. And then that's kind of my next point with the next guy, and Wayne Morris as well too. I don't know what purpose he really serves here at all. So I think it's just time to move on. Last guy, Shamari Connor. I think it was promising at first in those first couple years, but
you ain't got to explain yourself, bro.
Yeah, I don't love the way the Spags loves Shamari Connor. I don't know what he sees, but if it was up to me, Shamari Connor would definitely get the boot as well. So
I agree.
All right. I guess look, I'm not mad at the Shamari Connor thing, obviously, particularly not. But I just,
I'll go out there and play safety better.
I know, realistically, it's probably
I'm not. Yeah, but I'm not mad at you. Cutting him in this scenario. he's
so
going to be
bad.
here, and he's going to be here for safety depth because they need
Oh
it.
my God.
I just pray he doesn't play. That's really what happens. He needs to be the fourth safety. He's probably going to be in the third, and I'm going to be sick. And we're going to talk about that as well. No Gray conversation. I'm just going to quickly insert this because I forgot to talk about it. The No Gray conversation on Only Weird Games. Joshua Briscoe had specifically brought up the No Gray as an interesting kind of canary in the coal mine for the Chiefs' offseason plans, particularly because he's not good enough blocking to be really a tight end 2 in a modern NFL offense. He's not necessarily good enough catching the ball to be a tight end 1 as a result of that because of his skill set, as Seth Kaiser, also friend of the show, pointed out. And so that's the concerning part. And I'm not saying I don't think that they're going to get rid of him, but if they don't get blocking tight end help here in the offseason, I'm going to be concerned that, and another thing, as we refer back to the scheme, that they're not moving this offense in the right direction as far as that's concerned. Because part of the thing that I'm actually going to talk about on a stay scheming later on into the offseason, particularly as it pertains to Eric Bieniemy and the Bears offense and Ben Johnson, et cetera, et cetera. We also had an interesting quote at the combine. You need blocking tight ends to execute things in the modern NFL, and I'll talk about that a little bit further. Sorry for that departure. As far as the Juwan Taylor aspect, because we'll talk about the extended restructure with Jalen Moore, I think that you possibly get a day 3 pick for him. I think that would necessarily be a little bit unlikely. I did. People said TJ asked about the possible extension instead of it getting cut. I could see it happening. It's just I would be a little bit surprised if it happened. I would
love it.
Yeah,
I would not love it. I don't
he's
think
not
worth the $20 million.
He's not at an age in which it's concerning. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
It would have to be a team friendly extension. I'll just say that TJ to justify it would be the way that I feel.
It would be him begging and pleading tonight.
I'm team cut him. I'm cool. He don't the play don't justify the $20 million for me. Mm-hmm. Jalen Moore in the swing tackle when we move.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick. The other thing is I have a personal love and affinity for Esapole. I have no issues with him being a swing tackle. I think that he can be a swing tackle. I would also like to bring in a vet tackle just to be there, just in case, as we go into camp.
I wouldn't mind that.
DMac coming in with the Kolar, Connor Hayward. I signed Kolar in my choose your own offseason scenario because he's very important as far as that is.
Connor Hayward too short for me. I want somebody taller. I do like him.
Yeah, he can't be a starter. And I would say he can't be a third safety specific because he plays too much.
I didn't put him on here, but I think the guy I was looking at for a replacement was like Daniel Bellinger or somebody like that. I just kind of feel like my top guy would kind of be Cade Otton, but I think he's a little bit too expensive. But Daniel Bellinger, I think, could come in and really serve the same purpose that Noah Gray gives you and have veteran experience with that position as well, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. No, not that at all. So go ahead and walk us through the restructures.
Yeah, restructures. Obviously, we've seen Mahomes obviously get restructured already. That obviously has been significant enough to get the cap down to a point where I don't think the Chiefs have to do a whole bunch of moving around. Creed Humphrey, I think, is another guy that they could kind of go to. I think this is the second year of his deal or whatever, and I just think it would be in that range of I think the relationship there is a little bit better with Creed as far as him kind of, a lot of people kind of take restructures as something that they're like, oh, he's getting less money or something, or when virtually it's like you're just getting your money up front or whatever. So I don't think Creed would ever turn down that at this point of his career, and I think he'd be more willing to try to help, Veach and them try to get this cap number down a little bit. I wrestled with two guys in Trey Smith and George Karlaftis, who both guys who got new deals last year. I just think it would be easier to get George to restructure versus getting Trey. I think Trey still, although I think it'd be possible, I think it's a little bit tougher to go and ask a guy who just got paid last year to now come in and restructure versus a guy probably who George Karlaftis, who I think, you want me to be honest, I think George would have signed for anything. I don't think he really even cared how much it was. I think he loved being in Kansas City that much. That ultimately helped us get to the point where we were able to kind of go do some things in free agency along with the releases, the $20 million that we get from cutting Jawan Taylor as well as Mike Dana, I think, which was like $8.9 million or so ish. Then I wanted to have a little bit of extra fun, so the extension and restructuring of Jalen Moore's contract, I think I extended it for a year, and then tried to kind of get his cap number down for next year with that extension. So virtually giving him just another year, which would turn it now into like a 2-year deal where he's here, and having that stability kind of at right tackle where we don't have to necessarily either draft one or go out and get a veteran, spend a lot of money on a veteran guy to bring in here to help. I think Jalen Moore is more than capable of playing in that spot. Is he an all pro, or is he a Pro Bowl type of guy? No, but I don't need Pro Bowl, all pro type of play when on the other side I think that I have the potential of having that in a Josh Simmons on the other side. So I think Jalen Moore is more than serviceable of doing his job, and more than deserving. If we're going to extend a guy at that tackle position, I'd rather it be Jalen Moore versus Jawan Taylor at this point. So y'all got anything before I get into Resign?
None specific.
Nope, look good to me.
Resign. Obviously, I really would like for Travis Kelce to make a decision
Bring that boy back
by the end of this weekend, so we know where we need to land. This was just kind of where the contract market value was for him, 1 year for $10 million. I don't necessarily like that number. But would I be mad if they paid it? No. I mean, it's Travis Kelce, and I think he's more than deserving of, especially of what he's done for this franchise. I would like to get it at a little bit of a cheaper number, maybe in the $7 to $8 million range.
Single digits would be amazing.
Yeah, but 10 is kind of like would be where I would cap it at, and if he wanted more than that, then he can go look for apartments in New York if that's the case.
Too late, he already got one. Joke's on you.
Bringing back Tyquan Thornton, I think would be a priority. I think would be a really, really good, fairly even deal to kind of get on. I don't mind paying him the $2.8 million if that's where he wants to be paid. That's kind of more of his market value as well too. I think the Chiefs realistically could probably get him for a little bit less than that. I don't know about the year though. Is a question with me. So maybe it could be something where they work out a 2-year deal and they see how things go, and maybe having it out after the first year or whatever. But I think that'd be a feasible contract for them to obviously get done. And then Leo Chanel, I think, is obviously very feasible as well. 3 years for $13 million. I have no issues paying him $4 million per year. That makes I think that's a fairly decent deal for him, and a very, very decent payday for Leo as well too. So all three of those guys I would definitely have back.
Yeah. No issues with anything on there for me personally. I would like it more so Travis Kelce up to $11 million. That's just me.
Based.
Yeah. It could be incentive. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not. This isn't for you specifically. I was just saying in general. conversations about how much you want to pay Travis Kelce. I understand that he's been underpaid for a vast majority of his career, but like, buddy, you're married.
You're 36, dog.
You got
a bag. You got a bag.
You're 36.
You're 36.
You 36.
And again,
and you got a bag already.
It would help so much with
Come on, bro.
if it was incentive based. That's all. So
yeah,
I would love it if he did it. Go ahead and get into the free agents that you ended up signing.
Free agency.
Actually,
man, I know.
before you do it, sorry.
Yeah, you good.
I did want to get this comment. Karlaftis is a starting edge. Gelati's not, and I don't really have that much faith in him starting. So
he's a rotational guy.
You need a starting defensive end. You just don't have one right now. You need a starting defensive end opposite of George Karlaftis, and you need one that could be a legitimate depth piece behind them as well, in my personal opinion. Sorry. And yeah, we love Leo. He's not a defensive end. I know as a stand-up outside linebacker, I understand it. He's not that good of a pass rusher. He can do it occasionally. He can blitz very well. He just does not do that well.
He's kind of a tweener.
The way that Spags uses him as a Sam linebacker that can do the overhang stuff and occasionally play defensive end in certain looks, that's the way that you use Leo Chanel effectively.
For sure.
Go ahead and get to the free agents, DG.
It's free agency, man. So I know a lot of people have the nostalgic feelings of Tyreek Hill being back in Kansas City. I am not a part of that crowd.
Psych.
And it's not because I don't like Tyreek or anything like that. It's just more of so from a health perspective. I think it would be a better move to go, if we're going to go get a veteran receiver, to get a guy that I think not only can provide veteran leadership to this room, but a guy that I think that a lot of these younger guys could learn a lot from and help with development as well too, on and off the field perspective. Mike Evans to me would be a home run pick up, a guy who's definitely expressed interest about being in Kansas City before. I think a guy that wants to win, although he has won a Super Bowl before. I think a guy that in the back end of his career, winning right now is the only thing that is predominantly on his mind. But bringing in a guy like Mike Evans would obviously provide a bigger target for Patrick Mahomes, but as well as keeping him away from contending teams that are in the AFC, like the Bills, like the Broncos, like anybody you're going to obviously have to play against. 2 years, $25 million, I think with 12 and a half, 13-ish of that guaranteed, I think would be a home run contract to bring him in to provide some of those things that you need in that receiving room. Travis Etienne, I think, is the best as far as the available back that's going to hit the free agency market. I wouldn't hate if the Chiefs got into a bidding war over Breece Hall if it's on the transition tag. But if things don't move in their favor, then Travis Etienne, I think, is more than feasible for you to pay him what at this contract as well too. We just seen Javonte Williams get 3 years for I think $24 million. I think they guaranteed like 16 of that or whatever. So getting Travis here on a 3-year, $35 million deal with guaranteeing 17.5, I think is more than feasible. Next guy, Kobe Bryant, a guy I think who's made the transition from corner to safety, more of a free safety type of guy. I think it would give them that element of having that deep roaming free safety again. I know the transition was a little bit tough, but it does give him that versatility. At least he's a guy that has played corner in his career before, so we all know how Spags loves guys with decent versatility and being able to do that. And then K'Lavon Chaisson, I battled with this one because because my initial pickup was Boy Mafe. But seeing Caleb Von Chason last year I think he had 11.5 sacks for
Career
the
year?
Yeah, career, very, very much a career year. And then seeing this contract value of 3 years for $25 million, which I think for him will be a good, solid payday, but also a kind of, hey, come here, prove it again that you can do it again, and give the Chiefs a different element at pass rushing with that speed aspect. Something that Steve Spagnuolo would probably hate. But if I was Brett Veach, I don't care. We're getting faster
about you.
on the defensive end. Yeah, from the defensive line in perspective. Put him in on second and long, third and long. Tell him to go get after the quarterback. I don't care that if he's weak against the run. I don't care. I'll draft other defensive ends for that purpose if that's the case. And then the last guy obviously would be a guy who I would definitely love to have back as a reunion, and Willie Gay. I think a very, very easy contract to bring him in, and have ultimately your guy that can guard tight ends, running backs, and things of that nature, and you don't have to teach him anything about this system. He already knows. Willie has expressed great interest in coming back to Kansas City and being back here, and I think it would be a deal that wouldn't take anything to get done. So those are my free agents.
Yeah, look, I would love Willie Gay back as a depth linebacker. I think it makes a lot of sense, but we'll see if that ends up happening as well. I like Kobe Bryant as well. I like all these guys. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of Caleb Von Chason. I'm a little bit concerned about the repeatability as far as that career year is concerned. Yeah. He would not be my favorite edge target. But we will be getting into our free agency preview starting next week, and then as we lead up to those options as well, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in depth. CJ, anything as far as the free agents?
I love the Willie pickup. It'd be a great move. It'd be a safety pick as far as going after more guys in the draft. I like Mike Evans. The age scares me. The hamstring's going to piss me off. I've dealt with Sammy Watkins for years with hammies. Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer in my opinion. I don't care what Chuck says. But it's just – DG, are you prepared to see him be on the injury report every single week? That's probably
I am prepared.
I'd rather be a young guy from spending money. You know
so when I looking at the list, if it's a choice, like I said, between him and Tyreek,
I'm with you there.
To see him more on the injury, because I at least know I can potentially probably get 12, maybe 13 games out of Mike Evans if he stays healthy. The one solid part I would probably, we need him for it would be obviously the playoff run if you're able to get into that scenario. And I think with his experience that would prove dividends for the Chiefs. But I'm just more willing to deal with his injury history versus Tyreek Hill's injury.
I feel you. I mean, from our perspective, I love the Taekwon pick. I love the fact he can play X. He has a rapport with Mahomes. He had a lot of deep connection. Obviously, was the best deep ball receiver that we had this year. I would be more inclined to pay a guy like Romeo Doubs a 2-year deal. I know he's going to be probably more healthy and more available than a guy like Mike Evans. Obviously, Mike Evans is a better receiver overall, more explosive, better in contested catch scenarios. But a guy like Romeo Doubs can run routes, can play the X and can play the Z, can play multiple spots. He's been in a situation where he's been the guy some weeks. He's been in a situation where he hasn't gotten that many targets, and he's make plays, and he definitely gets open in the red zone. Most importantly, that's why I like him. He scored a lot of touchdowns. So having him in a scenario where he could be the de facto Rashee Rice replacement, if Rashee, we know he's probably going to get suspended. So if you had a room of Jalen Royals, Xavier Worthy, Romeo Doubs, Tyquan Thornton, I would like that room along with the draft pick as well. So not against Mike Evans, just the hamstring is going to piss me off. And we're playing in the cold. He's been in the warm his whole life. Now you got to play up here. I'm like, just a lot to deal with. So
yeah, it's true.
But I don't mind Mike Evans being here. I just get tired of that. So Outside of that, everything else I'm cool with. Kobe Bryant, cheap deal. Chase Hahn, like DMac, don't necessarily love him, but I don't hate it either. He's better than what we got now. Love Etienne. Do whatever you got to do to get him in the building. And yep, everything else makes sense.
Yeah. And I the Chase on deal I kind of did because I wanted, when I was looking through the safeties, I kind of wanted to be able to bring Kobe Bryant in and see what he could provide for you, especially with the losses of Brian Cook, and me moving off of Shamari Connor as well too. I think that he could do Shamari's job a lot better than Shamari Connor could do it. So.
I think a lot of people could do Shamari Connor's job better than Shamari Connor, but we move. God, he about to piss me off so much this year.
But I will say, before we move on though, boy Mafe would be my pick if we're going to go after an edge, especially
for sure. We already expressed interest. Yeah. If we're gonna spend money, I'm definitely with that for sure.
All right. So only thing left is the draft, and we'll start with the one that you ended up having the trades as far as that is concerned. And obviously, this one does include the no grade deal that ended up getting proposed as far as a third for the seventh. And look, I legitimately did not believe it, but you go on PFF and you can actually do this deal for.
If Noah Gray gets you a third, do that every day.
Look, I was like playing around, and I'm thinking, well, it'd probably be like
this was pre Kyle Pitts getting tagged for what.
Pre Kyle Pitts or whatever. So I was thinking that's how I was in my mindset. I was thinking that they let Kyle Pitts walk in free agency. You not necessarily that Noah Gray's gonna be their starting tight end, but at the same time, you need depth at that position if you're gonna let a guy walk or whatever. I got a little bit greedy I could have just done it for 79. I got a little bit greedy with the 7th round pick. But I also think that teams kind of value 7th round picks is just who really cares, But I mean, I'm not saying you can't find guys in those rounds or anything like that, but I feel like that they wouldn't be too mad about moving off a 7th round pick or whatever. 79 is probably a little bit high. Probably could have maybe did 5th, 4th-ish, but hey, they made the trade, so. But I love everything about this. If this was our draft, bro, I'd be in heaven. Obviously trading up, being aggressive, trading, up to 5, giving up 9, and then a future second as well to get Ruben Bain to come in and be the future of this defensive line. Also requiring an extra 6th round pick. The reason why I obviously called the Giants was just the relationship with John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh.
No John.
Yeah. The relationship with him and Andy. I feel like it'd be a deal that, I didn't see anybody up at 5 that they necessarily need. They obviously don't need an edge rusher. And then I was trying to get ahead of whoever.
Washington, New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans and them, getting ahead of them and being able to get the guy that we want. And then Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, again, bringing in more safety depth at this point. Trying to get a guy that I think that could provide be a great prospect and a guy that great instincts for Steve Spagnuolo. Obviously, we've all mocked Darrell Jackson Jr. To this team. I think this is about the 15th or 16th mock I've seen of us.
He's always there.
We're getting him at 74. Michael Trigg, elite level route running and a guy at tight end, great hands as well too. Not the greatest blockers in the world, but being able to bring him in to learn under a guy like Travis Kelce in this room, in this tight end room, and having him for the foreseeable future. My guy Manny Muhammad. I feel like there was a point where I was picking in this, and I actually wanted your guy, DMac trading Stooks.
Mm-hmm.
But he literally went the pick before.
Just like that.
And so obviously I wanted to go corner, so I just went ahead and got Malik Muhammad. But like I said, another guy that's got great versatility, can play outside, can play the nickel as well too. Maybe doesn't have the ball production that a lot of fans would love to see. But I don't think that's partially due to the last of him being at Texas. Just didn't throw his way like that. You know, they weren't trying him a whole bunch. More of in his sophomore year when Jade Barron and guys like that were there. And he was still kind of learning the defense, but over the last 2 years, he really improved his coverage skills and just didn't see the ball come his way a lot. Normally trying to guard the number one guy on any team, so getting that assignment. Jaden Ott, obviously the relationship with DeMarco Murray being now our new running backs coach. Jaden Ott's a guy that I would definitely love for the Chiefs to get, and I think getting him in the 5th round is insane value for a guy who's got great vision as well as explosiveness too, and it can be a future maybe a 3-down back at some point in his career. Still needs to probably work on pass protection, but I think having DeMarco Murray here to influence and coach some of those things up for him would be a great relationship to have. Another guy, Malachi.
Sorry, real quick. The 2024 tape for Odd is really good at Cal. I hope that the relationship is good and he doesn't get taken off the board as a result, because I would love him in the 3rd round. Keep going.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, even in the the fact that he dropped to the 5th round,
Great value.
I was like,
I'm sorry, I mean the day 3, not the 3rd round. Sorry, day 3.
Yeah, I was like, if he was up in the 3rd, I mean, I wouldn't hate it either, but I mean, obviously, I think a lot of guys would probably have to go before him. So I still think he's a guy you can get definitely on day 3. Malachi Lawrence, another edge guy that possesses great bend, but more of a developmental guy. But I think it's in the 5th round is still very good value to bring him in at depth. Kind of the opposite of what you would have. It would be great because if you had him and then Ashton Gelati, you're pretty much bringing in, you're pretty much replacing Ruben Bain and George Karlaftis with the same kind of prototype, player.
Speed and power.
What they can do. So I think Malachi Lawrence would definitely thrive here, especially as a role type edge in this system. And then Kobe Baines, did I say that right? Baines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kobe Baines.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, at this point, I was in the 6th round. I wanted a couple extra picks, so I was looking at guard or tackle, kind of swing guard tackle-ish type or whatever. And I just felt like Kobe Baines was probably the best prospect available at the guard position. Death piece, so not looking for too much flair out of that pick or anything. Just a guy to probably come in, get his nose dirty, and see what he has as far as to provide for that offensive line. And then my last guy, Sawyer Robertson, guy who I placed a lot of money on last year.
2 touchdown passes.
Yeah, 2 touchdown passes. A guy who I think led the nation last year in passing yards at Baylor. Obviously, Michael Trigg's teammate. A guy who I would love to go see throw the ball to Michael Trigg at St. Joe's or whatever. But a guy who I also think can provide a role for the Chiefs, and that is at the position of using him and his legs in kind of sneak situations or even at the goal line in kind of wildcat formations and QB option runs or whatever. Sawyer Robinson is a guy who they would say is sneaky athletic, but I think a guy who really Andy could really figure out some things for if you brought him in, and big arm. I think Sawyer's 6'4", something like that. So
6'4".
big body quarterback. Definitely would be a guy that I would love to have here, and even maybe even stash on practice squad just to watch him develop behind Mahomes and the other guys in that room.
All right, fair enough. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the no draft one. Start with, honestly, if you told me that we can have, I don't even care. If you told me we can have 4 out of these top 5 picks, I would be over the moon. I'd be over the moon. Caleb Downs, Gabe Jacas,
Chris Brazil in the 4th. Yes,
that's the one that actually
sign me up.
Be a little iffy on, but it's for him the 4th. It's fine. I love Mike Washington Jr. As I referred to earlier in Tandem Kozel.
And you get the crib, big citrus.
A lot of these guys speak for themselves to a certain extent. I specifically want you to talk about Chris Brazil.
So when it came to this spot, I think at that point I was trying to draft for a receiver. And I think it was between him and I want to say Antonio Williams out of Clemson. And I virtually picked Chris Brazil merely just because of his size. 6'5", a guy who can also kind of be a deep threat, has possessed something.
Tracks the ball extremely well.
Tracks the ball extremely well down the field. Catch radius is insane. Obviously, with his 6'5" frame, he gets in and out of his routes really quickly. And I think he would provide something different that the Chiefs haven't done in a while. I like Antonio Williams as a prospect, but I know that people will be pissed off at me because he's 5'11". So, and I know a lot of people have expressed that they're definitely done with the small receivers. In that opinion, even though I think Antonio Williams is exceptionally phenomenal at beating man coverage and a great route runner as well too. But there are some downfalls to Chris Brazil's game as well too. Concentration drops is definitely one of them, and then lacking, lateral agility. He can also get a little bit handsy at the top of his routes, which could create some issues as far as guys that are a little bit more physical from the corner position or whatever. But I think he would be a great prospect as far as bringing him in as a depth piece, especially in the red zone area, to throw some of those back shoulder fades and things of that nature that Andy and them kind of showed last year.
All right, fair enough. I appreciate you walking through our choose your own offseason, man. I'm happy with this. Obviously, Travis Etienne and Mike Washington Jr. in the backfield would be awesome. Caleb Downs, Kobe Bryant, and Jaden Hicks' 3 safety rotation would be very good. Gabe Jacas.
We draft Caleb Downs, I'll cry.
If we draft Caleb Downs, we got the best player in the draft.
Not mad at it at all. Mike Evans, Chris Brazil, and to the wide receiver room. Yeah, I mean, Tanner Corzell adds a different type as far as the tight end position is concerned. Not necessarily the blocking type, but definitely as far as the go and get it type for sure.
Yeah.
Then you can always add another guy as well. But yeah, appreciate you walking through it, DG. So with that being said, we're going to wrap up. Do pay attention to the combine. We'll be able to give our summary as far as the combine is concerned. We're going to get into some offseason. Get into some free agency talk next time out. And everybody, please, say a prayer for DG. We hopefully will be having some news for you on the next.
A new Chiefs fan on the way.
Yes.
Ready for our boy, man. But yes, of course. Until next time, peace out. Go Chiefs.